Hi, I'm Joe Polizzi, and this is the Content Inc. podcast. 5 minutes every Monday for content creators who desire to be content entrepreneurs. Hello, everyone. I am very excited to release our next Content Inc. book tour interview. But before we get started, just a reminder that Tilt 5 members, or those who hold at least 5 Tilt coin, will get an early drop of our 2021 Content Entrepreneur Benchmark Research tomorrow. That's Friday, July 23rd. If you don't know anything about what I'm talking about, just type in "what is Tilt coin" into your search engine and you'll go right to the correct article on thetilt.com. Over 400 people now hold Tilt coin and support what we're doing at the Tilt because of it. So thank you very much for all your support. Also, I'll be doing a ton of these research concepts on the podcast. I'm pretty excited about the findings. I can't wait to release the report. I hope the New York Times covers it. I'll leave it there. This week's interview is with the team from teachbetter.com. I first learned about Teach Better from my friend Matt White, who basically told me that Teach Better needed to be a case study in the upcoming version of Content Inc. Well, it definitely was. I hope you enjoy this interview. So just a little bit about Teach Better from my vantage point. I love their About Us page because basically you go to Teach Better's About Us page. It says, "We help educators teach better. We imagine a world where every educator is connected, supported, and inspired to be better every day so that all learners can discover and develop their passions to positively impact our communities." I feel like I should, run up a mountain after listening, after reading that one, gang. So, Jeff, I'm going to start with you first. Maybe you want to pass it off to Chad and Rae as you go, but obviously you and I were working together pretty closely on the case study. What I'd love the three of you to do is sort of give your origin story on how this thing happened. And then once we get listen to you talk about that, we're going to go into some of the questions about how you built the site, how you built audience, all that kind of stuff. So, Jeff, why don't you take it away and talk about how you got this thing started?
Absolutely. I appreciate that, Joe. And first, I got to say the new Content Inc. looks really good next to the old Content Inc., which is also next to Epic Content Marketing. So just wanted to say that real quick.
Thank you. Everybody likes the orange this year. So
It fits well. So I'll try to keep it short. I'm not good at short, but in Rae and Chad, I mean, you guys, you can always interrupt me. But everything here started with Chad's classroom and Chad creating something in his classroom because he was having what Chad will tell you is the worst year of his career as a teacher, as a 7th grade teacher, and created something that we now call the grid method. Back then, it was just the way he had to change and become a teacher because he had got to the point where he decided he either needed to learn how to teach better or stop being a teacher. And so he created something called the grid method. At the time, I was trying to build a marketing firm, an online marketing firm, doing social media and content marketing and things of that nature. Actually, I see Matthew White down there. Did a lot of work with Matt as a mentor of mine as well. And so Chad had created this thing and it started to catch on. He saw a great success with his students and then started getting questions from other educators in his building in his district. And they started testing this new way of teaching out, this new framework that he created and seeing some success and having questions and having follow-ups. And Chad came to me about creating an ebook. And we had a conversation over, I won't say how many, but a lot of wings at a Buffalo Wild Wings. And we talked about what it had done for his students and what it had done for him as a teacher and as a father. And my quote unquote famous words to him that we talked about in the team was, "Dude, we're not just doing an ebook. We have to do something different." And we started talking about how we wanted to share it. And we started creating content. We created an online course, started writing blogs, doing videos, creating downloads, and building things. And Joe really was off the back of on the back of this Content Inc. mark. And if you know Matt White down there, his help versus sell mentality, and we built everything off of that. And we said at the beginning, I said, "Hey, we're gonna give this all away for free. And if we do that well enough in the right way, people will want to work with us. Schools will call us. Schools will bring us in." And it's been a long road for us to do that, but that's what we've been able to do and what we've been able to grow. Early on in that process, we were fortunate enough, or I don't know, good enough to trick Rae into joining us, and she became a staple on the team, and now is an owner in the company and operates as our CMO. And with her and several other people coming onto the team came more expertise, more passion, more ideas, and then from there, more and more and more content, to where now we have just over 100 people that write for us, guest blog for us, and we create content. I think we're putting out 50 or 60 blogs this month, and that's typically where we're at every month. And then videos and online courses and downloads. So it really started with this need that Chad had to make a change, and then this desire to share that and the things that had done for him out with others. And which is similarly how we got Rae into it too. Is Rae had created something that we called the Teach Further model, which is a lesson design model that she had the same passion for. It was working for her, and she wanted to share it. We were just able to convince her that we were two guys that could help her share it, I guess. And it really just was built off that idea of trying to help people as much as possible, Joe.
No, I love that intro. I want to get Chad's detail on this one, because Chad, you're a big part of the book where we talk about the content tilt, which is the differentiation, and I really go into the grid method a little bit. And do you think that that's what's really differentiated? Because obviously, when you go to the site, yeah, I mean, it's a very upbeat program, it's very positive, but you do have a system. Can you talk about how you sort of developed the system and why you made that the central part of the site?
Absolutely. So Jeff covered a lot of like the sort of the origin story, but the grid method was really the sort of our Big Mac, I think is what Jeff likes to call it. So that was sort of the first major product. That was the first major service that we were providing districts. And to me, the grid method is sort of a foundational product that represents sort of all of or most of the other stuff that we teach on. So working with schools and districts as our primary clients in terms of our model, the grid method provides a holistic solution for those schools to improve, to reach more students, and to differentiate instruction for their learners. However, we also realized very quickly that schools don't just need the end, they need the process and the pieces to get there. So as we kind of started going after clients, we had a lot of schools that said, this is great, I love the grid method, but we also had some that weren't ready for it yet. So what we had to do was start creating products, services, and content that led them to the end goal of the grid method. So we started creating additional courses and finding additional services that built on the foundations and the principles that existed in the grid method, but were standalone services and trainings so that we could foster the trust with our clients, our schools, and the districts that we work with, and then slowly grow that into what we hope is ending up with them using the grid method. But if not, we've still fostered a relationship. And our goal with any of those districts we work with is to provide them with a holistic, full-fledged PD solution, so that if they need something, we built the trust so that they're going to come back and ask us every single time. And that's, I think, allowed us to differentiate not only for students in the classroom, but differentiate for our clients and the schools that we're servicing based on their individual needs.
Oh, I love that, Chad. Rae, maybe you can go into, I mean, you've built quite a massive site. Jeff was talking about the number of blog posts you have. What was the platform? Was the blog the platform that drew the audience in? Can you talk about sort of how you built an audience so quickly with, bringing all these pieces of content together?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, geez, I love hearing the backstory because it really is such a reminder of where this all started. And it truly started, I think, from the belief that, we needed to put out as much content as possible. And I think it evolved as we continue to still hold true to the belief that we want to put out as much content to help as many people as possible, as frequently as possible, as consistently as possible. It also stemmed into wanting to build a community. It's always valuable to have resources, but it is exponentially more valuable to know that the resources that you're going to access are trustworthy and full of solution seeking authors and creators. And so while the blogs continue to be a huge element of our website, I mean, as Jeff said, we're publishing, 60, 70 more blogs every month. It just keeps going up. No matter what's going on, it just keeps increasing month to month. We're also, extremely fortunate to have a podcast network that's putting out podcasts consistently throughout the week of incredible educators sharing their story and amplifying voices around the world. We have online courses and truly all of those pieces, the free downloads, everything not only blends itself into the need to put out content to support educators, but also trying to build up and strengthen the community that exists not only between our internal team that we, really feel strongly about, but the outside family, we call them, the family that exists, the Teach Better family of bloggers, podcasters, members of the speakers network. We just concluded 11 minutes ago our admin mastermind. I mean, each one of these pieces is content, but it's also very much focused on community.
So give a little timetable, Rae, just so I want to. Did you start all these things at the same time? I know you didn't start the podcast the same time as the blog, because people listening to this are going to be like, "Wow, I'm overwhelmed already. This is this is way too much content." Ease into it just a little bit for us, and like, what did you start with? Then you went. How long did it take to build the podcast, and then, to where you are now? Like, how many years has this taken to get to how many like, what's your audience, subscribers? Give us some numbers on those as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And gentlemen, feel free to jump in. I know I joined the team about 3 years in. So at that point, the blog already existed. We were already putting out a few blogs a month. And then soon after came the launch of the Academy. There was already a grid method course that was created, as well as it was an introduction course and a full workshop, which I know was being utilized by educators. But we really evolved that into the Academy, where now we put out courses every 30 to 40 days, where educators can learn about a new hot topic or something that they've shared they have interest in. So I know those two things were fairly early on. The podcast network came after we had launched Teach Better Talk podcast, which Jeff and I host, and kind of evolved as we continued to get connected to people who had their own podcasts and how we could further amplify their story. And that's truly grown, especially thanks to Joshua Stamper on our team, who's the team lead for our podcast network. And it kind of evolved from there. Jeff, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, and I think I want to hit on, Joe, what you just said is that overwhelm, because we do put out a lot of content. But the one thing that I try to always remind people when I'm talking to them about, when I'm talking to content creators or entrepreneurs, or we do a lot of talk with edupreneurs, educators who are starting something either on the side or trying to become a content creator, whatever it is, that we've built a team too, right? So we have, we got a team of 20, we have a little over 100 guest bloggers. So we have a lot of people that are helping us create this massive amount of content. And it did start, Rae kind of already touched on the timeline where the blog was the first piece, and it started with one post a month. And then eventually when we got up to 2, then we got up to 4, then we got up to 2 a week, and we keep going and going and going from there. The podcast that Rae and I co-host together, Teach Better Talk, that was our first one that we launched. We launched that in August of 2018. And then it was just this past, last spring of 2020, we launched our podcast network, which is what we now work with and help represent several other, I think we're up to 20 or 25 other educational podcasts. So that didn't come until then. The Speakers Network came a little bit before that. That's a speakers bureau where we work with educational speakers and help them with what they're doing. The Academy did come early on, but it was just 1 or 2 courses. And actually, Joe, something we haven't even mentioned in here was that originally everything launched as the Grid Method and thegridmethod.com. And then about 3 years ago, we did a brand changeover to Teach Better. And that's when we really flipped the way we looked at the Academy, because the Academy we have a subscription model in there, but the Academy became a focus of not only just having paid courses and having that be a monetization tool, but also that being a lot of free courses on there, which have become some of our best premium pieces of content and our best driver of building our email list, where we're at, over 20,000 on that we send out, and we do weekly emails to them, and we drive them everywhere that we want them to go and share more and more value there. And then let's see what else we get. So then, and then in the mix of then there's videos. That's probably our weakest spot, honestly, is videos like on YouTube and such. But it really was a slow build, and as we brought people in that could write and create, and then we built the team. So now we have a couple editors that help us get all that stuff organized and edited. And I mean, honestly, Chad, Rae, and I we don't do hardly anything when it comes to the actual blog at this point, outside of creating content and then giving it to Carrie and Liv, who lead our blog, and then they take it from there. So I think the key when you mention like the overwhelm really is to know that, one, we went really slow. We built things as the business could handle it and as our audience was asking for it, and then we built the team around that to help us do that. But we started with that one blog, one post a month, and just continued to build from there. So I think that's the really important part. Anyone who's listening that is trying to get into content creation, or maybe you've been in there for a while and you're trying to figure out how to grow, like, it just starts with the one, and then if you can add another one, and just slowly but surely build.
No,
Joe,
I'm glad you went. Oh, go ahead, Rae.
Joe, do you like that he said we're really weak in video, but we're live like 6 days a week on social media?
We're good with live video, just not good at creating another one.
No, I mean, I love the whole idea where I'm glad you broke that down, because if somebody listens to this and they want to get into it, they're like, I can't do that. But you started with a blog platform. You started very slowly. And then what I love your point, Jeff, and I think this is the right way to do it. You work on something, you get the process, the kinks worked out, and then you launch something else, and you've had it over enough time where now you've really got something amazing, and you're doing all kinds of different things. So,
and if I can throw, Joe, if you don't mind, I want to throw just one or two. If anybody who's new, something that Chad and I did really early on was Chad would come over, come out to my house. We're about 30 minutes away from each other, and we would sit down and record like 6 to 8 different videos in one sitting. He'd bring like 6 different change of clothes, and we'd rock out a whole bunch of the bullet points and ideas for blog posts. So because he was still teaching full time, I was still like working full time. So when you're early on, like, if you can batch in the creation, you can buy yourself a month or two of just taking now that created content and pushing it out, versus feeling like, oh man, it's another week, I got to get something out, and you're just killing yourself that way. So think through how you can manage that. That's going to allow you to grow a lot easier.
I think that's actually really important. Point that Jeff just made is we early on, I had to holistically believe that Jeff knew what he was talking about, and it was really hard. This is a funny story. Like, we talked about sitting down, going and getting wings, but he was basically like, hey, we're going to give all this stuff away. We're going to create all this content. I kept on asking him the rookie sort of content marketing questions, like, but when do we make money off of this? When do we sell this? And if I'm being completely honest, the first year and a half, we sold absolutely almost nothing, but still believed in the model of, if we create the content, if we build the content to bring in our audience, they will come. And looking back, it could have been really easy for me to either not believe what Jeff was telling me, or to say, hey man, I got a full-time job. I can't put all this time into all this content because we're not getting anything from it. So let's just lower our standards. Let's lower the production we're doing. Let's sort of like take our foot off the gas. But, I sit here and think, I don't know what would have happened. I don't know if we'd be here today if we would have taken our foot off the gas, or if we would have stopped believing in the model itself. So I actually credit a lot of that in believing in the process, believing in the model in the long term, in the long game, versus the immediate success that some other models kind of promise.
Chad, I love that. I'm glad you went through the timetable there, because when we talk about the Content Inc. model, it generally takes about 12 to 18 months until you feel that you're at a point where you might have something.
I gotta jump in, because this is you just led it perfectly. It's one of my favorite stories to tell. So you're gonna love this, Joe. Chad and I got our first opt-in on a lead magnet directly from our site in month 13. So we had been building for a year. Now, we were building our email lists in other ways, and we were going to conferences and stuff like that, but we got our first legit lead, organically driven to our site opt-in. We were just over a year pass. Like when Chad talked about that patience of like not seeing it pay off. And I used to tell him, I'm not even joking. I said, Joe says it takes like 12 or so months. So this is how long it takes. And Matt White says that it could take a year to year and a half before this thing really starts working, but you got to stay true to it. And
absolutely true story.
I can't remember the last time we haven't had dozens every day, at least minimum.
Well,
so
I'm glad it worked out, or I'd feel really bad right now. So I'm glad that was great. Chad or Jeff, share with me. I want to get through some revenue. By the way, for folks, we're talking to the team of Teach Better and how they built their site. Give me, what's the aha moment? Did you have an aha moment? Were there one? Were there two where you said, we've got this thing. This is actually going to be a thing. Chad, you don't have to go back teaching or whatever you wanted to do. Jeff, you were proven right and you did know what you were talking about. Could you go kind of through what that was, if there were a couple moments?
I can, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, but I can think of the exact moment because I think we were both there.
I'm curious what moment you're going to pull from, but yeah, go ahead.
I was going to go with the Northridge presentation, but if you have another moment.
No,
see, I think it's funny because I was going to be like, did we hit that moment yet?
I was going to say when we tricked Ray to say yes, like that was a big moment. Right?
Well, that was just a pivotal moment.
Go ahead and share, right, Chad, because I'm curious. I'm not sure if I've ever heard you answer this question like this. I'm interested.
So there was a long time where we were still creating content. I was still teaching, and we were doing some professional development. We were getting a few clients here and there, but it was nowhere near enough to take the full leap to go full time and say, I have to quit teaching so we can do this. And whenever you're starting a business, you always want to feel at least somewhat secure, even though that's really, really difficult when you make that leap from your quote unquote day job. And that's always really hard. Well, we were pretty lucky. We had presented for free. Actually, we had paid. We had spent the last few dollars that our company had. So this is actually, we saved this text. I think it's somewhere in the archives of our business history. But I texted Jeff and I said, hey, there's this conference. It's going to cost us $300 and we get to go do an hour presentation. And Jeff asked me, is the right audience going to be there? And I said, I think so. I think it's going to be a pretty solid conference. Like, I guess we should go. So we presented this conference. After the conference, I've presented to this room of about 30 to 40 people, and two people came up to me. One of them was the curriculum director of a district, and they told me, they said, I want all of my teachers to do this. I want to know what that takes. These are some of our PD days. Let's connect after the conference. So here was a presentation we paid $300 to do. We spent the last $300 in our quote-unquote business fund, which basically Jeff and I had created ourselves from our own income at that time. We had spent our last dime on this conference, and we had our first legitimate lead. So over the course of the next 3 to 4 months, which we figured out how long it takes for a sales cycle for a school district, which is super fun, by the way. We decided that we were going to introduce to a room of teachers this concept. And if enough teachers said they wanted the training, the district was going to close the deal. The district was going to say, yes, we can move forward. And the deal was going to be just big enough where I could leave the classroom, or I would need to leave the classroom to make the deal possible. So I present to this room of teachers. We have them physically sign up on this list, and it was like a 90% interest rate from the people in the room. So we left this meeting, and I remember it fully because Jeff and I agreed that when we close our first big deal, we were stupidly going to buy Apple Watches because this is literally when the Apple Watch was first coming out. And we had left this room. She had verbally confirmed, yes, we are moving forward. We knew how much the deal was going to be. We were on cloud nine. And that was a moment when I said, oh my gosh, our lives just changed. And I knew my life just changed because I can't service the size of this contract and still be a full-time teacher. And Jeff and I had a fairly uncomfortable conversation that we often quote where he said, hey, I said, how long do we have? Like, what's our runway with this deal? He said, we got 6 months. I was like, 6 months? He said, yep, 4 months. I was like, 4 months? He goes, yeah, 3 months. And we basically created a 3-month runway from the start of that contract till we were going to be out of money and I was going to have to go find another job. So that was sort of the leap that I had to take. But that was the aha moment where you have to take that risk at some point. And I can actually tell you, I ended up going about a month before the client paid, selling iPads on eBay from my classroom just so we could keep things going. So it was definitely a risk. It was definitely really scary, but that was the risk that ended up paying off in the end and allowing us to kind of get the gears turning and wholeheartly put everything we had into this in what we do.
So that was definitely. I want to hear what Rae thinks her moment is for when she felt like we had something, because she came in and had to trust these two weird guys that she met on the internet. For me, Joe, from a content standpoint, the moment that really hit me this whole content thing is really working is the day that I turned off all my notifications on lead pages. Because I went, wow, this is just annoying the heck out of me. There are so many freaking people signing up for our stuff. I got to turn this off. And I stopped and I went, whoa, never thought that was going to happen. And that to me was a moment I'm like, oh, okay. Like, because I knew there were some other moments where I knew we had something in the sense of the work we were doing was good work, like what Chad's referring to. We were doing good work with districts. There was several moments with teachers and students where I was like, I don't even care if this falls apart till tomorrow because we're doing good things. But from a content standpoint, are we building this thing the right way and doing that? It was the day, I don't remember the day. I remember the feeling of like, wow, like this is getting really annoying because this content thing's actually working. And that was the moment for me.
Well, Rae said she didn't really have one, but Rae, do you have one?
Well, it's funny because you guys were joking like, oh, the day you felt secure. Like, I mean, we're always hustling. So, but I think, it's comical hearing all the perspectives because, there's so many different pieces that go into building a brand, building a team, building a company. And for me, while there's been so many moments, I think one of the biggest ones was actually building the physical team. Like if you go through the members of the Teach Better team, not even counting our bloggers, podcasters, speakers, blah, 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 but truly our team, it is full of really, really well educated and respected people. And for me to know that the majorities of these people are doing this on their free time because they're all still in the classroom. They all have other jobs. They all are committing their evenings and weekends and early mornings to serving this community. I think for me, that was the moment that I was like, oh, we're not only doing good work and helping other educators, but the work is so strong and good enough that now other people want to commit their time to serving this community to a wider audience. And I mean, whether it be Dave, who I know is in here, who has more titles and credentials than any of us combined speaking here, or any of the other members like Hedrick Nichols and Caitlin Giordano and Becky Thal and Amanda Post and Joshua Stamper. I mean, I literally could go on and on and on. These team members are the most dedicated educators in the world, and they want to be here. And to me, that says a lot.
Go ahead, Chad.
I think to Rae's point, I think another aha moment in terms of the community and the content we've built, we had a conference in a few years ago before everything shut down.
2019.
Yes, thank you. I was going to say 2020. I was like, that can't be right. We had a conference in 2019, which ended up, in my opinion, becoming a physical representation of the passion that we had built in our community and Teach Better network and family with the content, services, and support that we were so passionately trying to provide. And so I think the conference for me, looking out into a sea of people who traveled from across the country with a mission to be better, to teach better, who were just a physical representation of that, was another really huge aha moment that we had built something pretty cool and pretty amazing that I think all of us are very
No, that's great. Jeff, hold on for 1 second because I want to get Ann involved. Ann Ginn, editor of the Tilt. So, Ann, I know you will want to take some questions. I don't know if you want to lead off with one, but we want to see if we have any questions from the audience.
Yes, if anyone does have a question, there's a handy dandy hand in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. So just tap on that and we will bring you to the stage from that. But I do have a question. When my heart kind of stopped as you guys were talking about changing your brand identity 3 years ago. So when you went from the grid method and to Teach Better, that's a pretty big change. And I can see why you did it. I mean, I can see that how the Teach Better encompasses your expansion, but can you talk us through a little bit about how were you nervous at all from that and how you made that
Yes.
decision?
Were they
100%.
nervous?
Man,
Yes.
Oh my
wow.
God. Were they nervous, Anne?
Yes, we were extremely nervous. So that was a weird result. So of actually a big push from Rae, because Rae coming in just as we were we're still super small, but just getting going. She was able to come in from a different angle and realize that like the word, like the grid method being our business, just didn't align with what we were doing, because we were already doing more than just the grid method. And when Rae and a few others joined, like they like I said, they brought more passion and skills and things. So we started expanding even more what we were doing, and grid method just didn't make sense as the name of the business. And so they pushed. And the crazy thing is, we looked at Teach Better, and one of the reasons we didn't do it is because teachbetter.com was a very expensive domain name. So one thing, we were nervous because we were about to spend a whole bunch of money on a domain name, like several $1,000s. And then it was just this fear, because we had, I remember talking with Matthew White's down there. He and I talking about our SEO growth and how it was like picture perfect what you're supposed to see. And I'm like, oh, we're about to completely shift all this. We're gonna mess it up. We're gonna lose it all. Like, what have we done? And it was super nerve wracking. And I think one of the best parts was I was at a conference with Rae and one of our other team members, and we had all set. We were at a conference all during the day, and that night at 7 p.m. we were going live to announce like this big change and make it official. And somebody, I'm not going to say who, but he looks a lot like me, accidentally scheduled the email that went out to our audience. I think it was like 6,000 at that time, at 7 a.m. And so we're sitting at the conference, and Tiffany, who was on our team, leans over and goes, I just got this email from Chad. Wasn't that supposed to go out later tonight? And so we were nervous. Then we had to panic and go live at the conference and get it all done. It was a crazy nerve-wracking experience. And Chad and Rae can chime in how they felt there. For me, it was a long process too, because we had to go through the process of changing. Like, Facebook was fighting us with how we changed our Facebook group, which had been growing, and all that type of stuff. And for us, it was like, okay, is this the right move? I mean, are people going to take the words Teach Better wrong? Because, it came from very, very early on. Chad said, I never want to go into a classroom and tell teachers that they're not teaching the right way, or that I know how to teach better. I just wanted to show them, hey, here's something I did to help me teach better. Maybe it can help you, right? And so it was weird. We were still young, but we were having some success, and to make that change was extremely scary, I think.
I 100% agree with Jeff that it was absolutely terrifying. And I remember, I'm pretty sure I fought it the hardest out of anyone on our team at that time. From my perspective, I was like, it's going to cost a bunch of money. It's going to be a huge change. But the more kind of Rae made her case in terms of, this is sort of the representation of what we do now, and the work that we're doing has exceeded and grown beyond just the Big Mac, the grid method. We do more now. We can do more, and we need a brand that represents that. And I can honestly tell you, it was logistically, it was such a nightmare, changing everything, risking the SLO. And we knew it was going to be really, really hard. But I can tell you right now, looking back, it was probably one of the best decisions we could have made when we made it. If we wouldn't have changed that branding, if we wouldn't have modified that, I think a lot of the amazing work Rae, from a marketing standpoint, has been able to establish in our company and with our brand wouldn't have happened if we wouldn't have made that decision.
And I just want to clarify, I wasn't nervous about this at all, and the guys are crazy. But then again, I didn't have to deal with any logistics. I just got to sit back and be like, yay, the name's changed. And at that point, I didn't do anything else with the execution. So I felt like it was awesome. I don't know.
Well, the fact you convinced them is really just, that's kudos from that to come through. Getting founders to change the name is kudos to all three of you, really.
Well, and I do have to say, just for clarity, we talked about changing the name for over a year. So this was not like something where we all sat down at a meeting. We're like, hey, should we change that name? Oh, yeah, let's just execute that. No big deal. 1 8-hour conversation. This was over multiple months, multiple conversations that finally the gentleman pulled the trigger. It was awesome.
That's great. That makes a lot of sense. So we've got Corrales who'll be next. But before we go to Corrales, I have to commend, and Matthew, you have the best profile photo today. So you win for the room. And now we'll go to Corrales to answer or to ask your question.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for having me up, Ann and Joe. And Jeff, I love what I thought it was interesting what you were talking about. At some point, you had to turn off lead pages because your content efforts were kicking in. And I was curious, what were you like at that point before things started? You had to turn lead pages off. What did your marketing funnels look like? And what were were you in, as far as like keywords and content that you were putting out, was it like, as far as research goes, was it competitive stuff that you were putting out there, or was it like, how did you reach that sort of volume, and how did you reach those efforts where the content was just rocking and rolling and you had to like almost turn the lead pages off?
Yeah, so it was a lot of keyword research, and actually Matthew's in the room right now who taught me how to do that, and it was utilizing that keyword research. And actually, honestly, one of the things that I did, Matt will appreciate this, is I kind of took all the things that Matt and I wish a lot of clients that we worked with together would have listened, and we actually did them. So we became like the best client. But what we did was we did a lot of research. So I did a lot of conversation with Chad, and there was another educator that was with us at the very beginning. And I asked them a lot of questions as if they were my clients, saying, what are the problems that we're talking about? What are those words? What are the words you use? What are the acronyms you use? How would you search for that? Let's do a quick search. Like, you find me some resources, and looking at the words that they were putting in and they were talking through. And then I did keyword research on that to find what was competitive, where I could fit in, what wasn't super highly competitive that I thought we could gain traction on, what were the very specific things like, mastery learning in Ohio, right? Mastery learning PD for professional development, things of that nature. So I looked at the competitiveness. We tracked them. So I was constantly checking, which is not always the best idea because it can play mind games with you, but constantly checking our traction and our growth on our organic, tracking the SEO rankings, but also our site traffic, and measuring that. But it really came down to the content. So as we were able to consistently create content. So one thing I learned early on wasn't necessarily about the volume of content, but it was the consistency of content, and really, really paying attention to the quality of the content, from a quality as in the value being provided, but also quality and from an SEO standpoint, and constantly trying to tweak those, the SEO pieces within the posts themselves and within the pages on the site to see how we would track differently and how we would draw that organic traffic. Because we've never done, in the little over 6 years that we've been in business, we've only done maybe $500 total of any sort of ads across, and they were all like social media ads that were tested and stuff. So it's been all organic that we've been able to drive it that way. But it really was a focus on that, on those keywords, and really, really just pushing the SEO.
Nice. And was there did you dial it? Was it started with your ICP, like your customer persona? Was that the driver of most of the ideas to get the content?
I would love to say that we did that, but I think we were much broader than we probably should have when we first formed. But it was going into thinking through our ideal customer and the way in which they would search the internet. I think looking back, if I would do it all over again, I think we would have got a little more niche, a little more specific about that audience. But and I don't know, who knows, that maybe that would have sped it up, maybe it wouldn't have worked as well. But focus on that now as we've adjusted over time, and we started to, one of the things with us is, the people that cut us the checks are administrators in schools, but 90% of our marketing is done towards teachers, and we build the trust and the connection with the teachers, and then they tell their admins, and it's that sort of process there. One of the things that we've shifted in the last probably 18 months or so is really shifting to the content, and not shifting away from content for educators, but trying to do more intentional content towards administrators. So there's been a little extra, that SEO and that keyword research got a little more focused because we got a little more very specific to certain roles in positions within a school district. Not sure if that helped or not.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you. Very fascinating.
Great questions, Corrales, and thank you. We're also fans of Corrales, so it's a fun room tonight from that. So next up, we have actually Matt, who's been referred to many times. So go ahead, Matt.
Well, thank you. It is just so cool to hear. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Certainly.
just wanted to make sure.
You look and sound beautiful, my friend.
Yeah, I did get my pre-order of the new Content Inc. Joe. Congratulations, and that's fantastic. I can't wait to read.
Sir.
I actually
yes, bless you.
I go on vacation next week, and so it's my vacation reading, believe it or not. Some people make fun of me for reading business books on vacation, but and it's fantastic. So my relationship with Jeff and with Chad, mostly through Jeff originally, but we used to work together, and it has just been a blast. I just wanted to say, listening to the story, and it's fun because as Jeff has been building, and Jeff and Chad together, but mostly I know through Jeff, as they've been building their business, it's just been fantastic to see everything that's been said here, to kind of be riding a little bit on the coattails and just kind of seeing how it's going. And Jeff and I get together every few months to, grab a beer, grab a lunch or whatever. And it's truly exciting to see that they really are 1,000% focused on the content, and everything that Jeff and I used to work on, like he said, with our clients and the way that we do things. And it just is, it's neat to see proven out. And Joe's process of the whole Content Inc. method is exactly what he's doing. And so I just wanted to kind of jump in and say, it's fantastic to see. I'm proud of all of you guys. And it's really cool to be a part of it, and then also to see it all happen. And so I don't really have a question other than just to say, hey, and great job.
Appreciate you, brother. And fun fact, Joe and Laura, is that several of the early on business meetings were in Matt's office. So after hours.
This is true.
So Matt played a big part in that. In a lot of ways, in more ways than just providing office space.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, it is neat. And again, I remember Jeff telling the story, and Chad mentioned before too, was that it was like they had to believe that this was going to work, right? So they had to put the faith in, he said 12, 13 months before something actually truly kicked in. But I do remember them talking about building content and what they were doing. And they mentioned about the conference back in 2019. And he was like, so I think we're going to do this conference. And we're afraid that enough people show up to cover our costs, And so, but then they ended up, it was a fantastic event, and it was huge and, much better than what they expected, I think. And so again, it's just that it does take faith sometimes to kind of jump, but it also takes time. So to be able to believe in that and keep it going, I think is a big deal. And these guys have done a great job at it.
I think another sort of part of the DNA of our company that I heard Jeff say, and still says to this day from his time working with Matt, is like the help versus sell mentality, and the idea that you need to commit to that, and that needs to be a real mentality. It can't be fake. It can't be just to get to the sales conversation. And that, to me, like the help versus sell, content first mentality, has really driven almost everything we do. And that has been a pivotal component of the work that we do, not only with schools and teachers and clients, but the way we talk and help our community and support our network. That has been a vital part of our DNA, and truly gaining people's trust through that model has made the sales process once they have that trust so much easier. And that's a hard thing to fully commit to because you always want to go for that sale. You always want to go for the right hook and everything else. But really, truly kind of buying into that early on, I think was a huge game changer.
That's a great point. So as we wrap up and we're getting closer to the end of our time together, I'm going to go back to the beginning. So this is probably more for Jeff and Chad. Taking that 12 to 18 months before you're making money, while you're working a job, full-time job, and teaching certainly is not a quick day, and despite what some people think. So what kept you motivated? How do you keep going and doing all this when you know even if you know it's a long payoff time, how do you keep motivated from that time?
So Chad, I go ahead. I want to throw because one thing that a lot of people don't catch about this same question is that Rae has been with us for 4 years now, working as a full-time teacher and working with us, helping us build this thing, and is actually just about to now come full-time with us. And so I'd love to hear her version of this, Rae, if you don't mind, because you had, you came in very early on when we were just trying to figure this thing out and really help us shape the way in which we were going to grow this thing and the communities that we talk about and this brand we talk about and stuff. But you still have been putting in full-time hours as a classroom teacher and then legitimate full-time hours with us as well. I'd love to hear if that's okay, Anne. I just kind of wanted to spin it that way.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
A good viewpoint for people to hear.
Yeah, no, it's an important part of the story that I didn't know. So yes.
No, I mean, everybody, whether it be me, Chad, early on, or anybody who's still currently with us, is in that struggle, right? Of working the two jobs, the job that you know is right and you want to commit your whole life to it because you really see the long-term impact, and the role that you currently have control of where you can impact students and see the day-to-day fruits of your labor, but know that you can, continue to make a larger impact when you're out, helping all teachers, across the world. But I do have to say with Teach Better, early on, it really came down to loving the process. Watching Chad and Jeff early on really believe in this. I saw the work they were doing. I actually was new to the grid method when I had met Chad. So I was seeing the success of my students. And it not only was knowing that the product was good, that was easy to say, but then it was fascinating to watch them be passionate, them continue to support others. And I'm like, holy cow, I want to be a part of that. Like, I'm watching them support teachers and then watching those teachers be successful with their own students. And it was really a really cool process to watch. As I continued, I think a lot of my drive to work both jobs is that the mission became more ingrained in like my core values. I really love this work, right or wrong. I know we joke all the time that phrase of when you love a job, you never work a day in your life. And we always say, wrong. That's not true. We're busting our butts. We work all the time. We are working harder than ever, but we love our work. And for me, it's really coming down to, and I'm sorry to be a broken record, but the people. Our team is full of great people. The work we're doing is truly changing lives. And for no other reason, I'm dying to be a part of it. So, I'm not saying that working in the classroom full time and then being in this job is easy by any means, because a lot of my work is obviously in the evenings and weekends and all summer long. But this type of work, knowing you're doing work that is helping and improving and impacting others, there's no question. I'm fueled by it.
Go ahead, Chad.
So to Ray's point, early on, there were definitely times where I was sitting here questioning Jeff, like, dude, we're writing so many blogs and putting out so much content, but like nothing's happening. And I think what it comes down to in terms of finding that motivation is defining what success means in incremental levels. From day one in this business, we knew that if we helped one teacher reach one more student than they would have otherwise, we won. And I think regardless of the business that you have, it's finding the mission, the vision, the small wins that you can build on via the content you're sharing, via the work that you're doing that can drive you through the building process. So instead of saying, I need to quit my job as a full-time teacher to feel successful, having a teacher email me after reading a blog or taking a free course or watching a free video that we put out there and saying it helped them reach a student that they couldn't reach before or help them feel more confident as an educator, those were like the little wins over a long period of time. Even if it was once a month or once a week, depending on the timing, it could have been any time. Find those little successes that are driving the mission of your long-term goals. Because now, as where we sit, we get to do that same work that our content was doing early on, directly with schools and districts on a scale that we probably never thought was realistic or even possible. We always hoped, but we've truly been able to build this and realize that tangible success, both I think financially but more importantly, mission and vision wise, to truly reach the goals that we have as an organization. So finding those little victories was huge early on.
No, Chad, I love that entire take. And as Ann says, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but what I'd like each of you to do before we leave here, I would like you to think of one thing, maybe two things. If someone wants to do what you're doing, they want to become a successful content entrepreneur the way that you've done this, what piece of advice would you give them going forward from a success standpoint? Rae, why don't I start with you?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in here. I think there's so many things that you can do. And to be honest, everything that I do, I learned from Jeff. So he's going to have a better answer than me. But I've been doing a lot of marketing coaching recently with educators that are launching books or products or courses that they want to feature. And I think something that I've heard from them that's helpful is really to ensure that your core values are aligned and that everything moving from that has to be in the same vein. So it's a little activity I was doing with them last week where you choose 3 to 5 bullet points, 3 to 5 things that you want people to attribute to you. So when they visit your social media platform or when they go to your website, what are the 3 to 5 things that they can expect to get from you? And it could be content, it could be a certain style of writing, it could be a personality or characteristics that you might possess. But once you have those 3 to 5 things of, when I think Rae Hughart, what immediately comes to mind, then every single decision you make, whether it be a posting on a platform or a blog or anything in between, has to carry those attributes. And I truly, truly believe that whether it was intentional or unintentional, Teach Better does this consistently across all networks because we really believe in helping. And obviously giving Matt the credit for that, as that help versus sell model we referenced earlier. But that really is something that is a core value, and it is in every single email, blog post, connection, and phone call.
Jeff, you wanted to go and give your piece of advice?
Yeah, I think if I could give two big pieces of advice that I would give is consistency and patience. I think it's so easy nowadays to start something, and it's really, really easy to go down these rabbit holes of courses and masterminds and YouTube's videos and all these things that make it seem like it's going to happen overnight and that it's going to happen next month or even next year, that we can very easily get really excited about something because it's easy to get started, but it's really hard to maintain, it's really hard to grow, and it's really easy then to get discouraged and to give up. And so patience is absolutely, absolutely key. And with that is the consistency. And so that goes into when I, talk about when we started, it was 1 post a month. So like I've heard Rae say this, and we were doing I can't remember who we were with. I think we were with some of our podcasters, and we were talking about they were talking about number of posts, right, that they should do on social media. And it's the same answer for number of podcast episodes I should put out, or how often I should, publish blogs, or how often should I publish videos, how often should I publish courses, anything like that. And the answer is consistently. So whatever that is for you, whether that's once a month, twice a month, 10 times a week, doesn't matter. be consistent. And so don't go in too fast, too large, too quickly. Go in where you can be consistent all the time, and then be extremely patient with what you're doing. Put out good, valuable content. Be consistent in your messaging, like Rae talked about. Be consistent in your belief in that, and be really, really patient for the process.
No, I love that, Jeff. We've been talking about how often can you be indispensable consistently, because every piece of content has to be amazing that you put out. So if you're going to be consistent about it, pick whatever schedule that is. And I think that's hard for people to think of as, oh no, we should be daily or we should be whatever. It's like, you need to be whatever you can be, the leading informational expert. Pick that consistency with the resources you have right now. You started with resources at once per month. Now you have a lot more resources. The game changes a little bit, but I love that take, Jeff. Chad, let's end up with you. What's the one piece of advice you would give content entrepreneurs?
I have to go after these two geniuses, so I'm gonna sound dumb now because their answers were so good. I think my biggest thing to support kind of a little bit of what Rae said, as well as the consistency, and to your point about the quality, is finding that niche of what makes you different. What is that passion? What is that mission? What is that vision that you have? So that when you're creating content, it's not always going to be work because it flows out of you. Jeff often makes the joke that like he can put a quarter in me and I can go about certain topics. Raised the same way, in terms of training and development. But what are those things that you could talk about forever without really feeling like it's work? Because those are the areas where content's going to flow out of you organically. It doesn't mean every blog or every piece of content you're going to write is going to be something that you're acutely interested in. However, if you make a large percentage of the content that you create about those hot topic items that separate you from your competitors, that are what you are bringing to your clients and your audience that no one else can bring, it's going to make the creation of that content easier, but it's also going to make it feel a lot less like work to kind of pump out that consistency. So understand your mission, your vision, your passions, and your niche of where you stand out. Instead of trying to do everything okay, do what you do really, really, really well.
So in essence, find your sweet spot in your tilt, Joe.
Guys, it's so easy because you are the book model. I mean, you're perfect. But it's funny that, Chad, you ended up with that one because obviously your case study is in the content tilt section and you have that point of view. You have that difference. And of course, that flows through. You do it consistently and you live it and breathe it in your mission. So the three of you really sum that up really well. Thank you so much. Congratulations. Before we close this out, Jeff, why don't you tell everyone where they can find more information about Teach Better?
Yeah, so everything is over at teachbetter.com. You can get everywhere from there. We are at Teach Better Team on all your social media platforms. But from the site over at teachbetter.com, you can get to the Academy. You can learn about the conference when we maybe bring that back. And you can get to all the free resources, the blogs, the webinars that we got going on, all the Facebook group that we have, the page, everything. So teachbetter.com for all of it.
All right. Rae, Jeff, Chad, thank you so much.
Okay, back to Joe now. A lot of people who aren't content entrepreneurs look at social media influencers and the quick hits on TikTok or Instagram and just simply do not realize how long it takes to build an audience. There were many times Chad and Jeff could have given up, but they did not. They persevered and they created an amazing success story. So if you're going to be a content entrepreneur, you have to build in the time for success to happen. I hope you enjoyed this interview with the Teach Better team. Join us next Thursday on the Content Inc. podcast for another very special interview and case study from the Content Inc. book. Good luck and go out and change the world for the better.